Here.
Jonathan,
Here.
Donna,
Here.
Rachel,
Here.
and Tony. He's here. Okay, that being said, does anybody have any questions in regard to last month's minutes that they would like to add?
Nope, all good here.
Nope. I don't either.
Okay. That being said, would anybody like to make a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting?
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes from the meeting of the regular planning commission meeting of January 19th, 2023.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, then we'll take a vote. Glynis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
and Tony's a yes. Okay, the next item on the agenda, if no one is aware, there was a resignation from the commission by one of the members, Ryan. He sent a letter to the mayor, I believe, on Monday, resigning from the commission. That being said, it'll be left at that, and the mayor will address it in the future, coming future. If any, there shouldn't be any questions about that. If there is, we'll have to wait till the mayor addresses the issue. Next on the agenda, I believe, is discussion in regard to the proposed amendment to the town plan for in regard to Benlock property.
Excuse me, Tony, I did have one thing, just for on the record. Do we need to then discuss that Rachel Cooper is now no longer alternate?
No,
She's now
we don't. That is something for the mayor to take care of, not us.
Okay.
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 Thomas, does anybody have anything after reading the staff report that they would like to put on the record in regard to the Benlock property
Sorry.
and a proposed addendum to the annexation?
Tony, I think we're doing the fire discussion, the firehouse.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Oh, they
okay.
don't-
I know you're driving, so going off of memory.
Yes. Okay, so then we'll go to the proposal for the or the discussion for the property in regard to the firehouse. I believe there's somebody from Wasatch County that is on the line.
Yeah, this is
Am I right,
Eric Hales.
Alicia? Yeah.
Yeah, this is Eric Hales, the fire chief, and I'm with Clinton Earings, our assistant chief and fire marshal. You're probably well aware of him.
Yep.
We appreciate you taking a couple minutes for us to chat about this project.
No problem. I believe I had spoken to your architect about a week or two ago.
Okay.
I had
Yeah,
asked him to send me some of the drawings that he had or anything. I'm still waiting on those.
Okay, and all we have is kind of what we see here, so we can send those to you as well. This is about, all this is just a high level, what possibly could fit on that property and accommodate our needs, and then as well as the city's need or the town's needs as well. So
What road are we looking at then? What
so this
property?
is Highway 248. Right there where your cursor is Highway 248.
And what is the dotted lines to the right there? Is that another road there? Yeah, right
That's
there.
actually a river or drainage in easement that comes through the property that we're trying to avoid.
Okay, and where on 248 is this new station located?
So it's just north of what, the claim?
Claim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of the road from Plain?
Same side of the road, just it's a little odd triangle piece, just there right north of Plain. You've got the home that's existing that has quite a bit of fill dirt that's piled off the side. That's the southernmost edge of this parcel.
So I remember Thomas saying something about there being some commercial space somewhere in there. Is that the space, or is there still commercial near there?
Yeah, let me just give a little bit of context. So this is the 7+ acres that the town owns, and I think that there's been some discussions with the fire department. Could there be an opportunity to locate a fire station there? So I think Eric and his team have started to kind of look at different opportunities. Could it work? Might it be an opportunity to mix something in with some potential mixed use development, commercial development, trailhead parking, transit? We've been looking at a number of options. So I think that Eric and his team have just kind of started to look at what might fit on this piece of property. And so I think that's what you're seeing tonight. But this is that 7-ish acres that is just, as he noted, a little bit northwest of the claimed property.
Yeah, so what our architect, we are building a station, or in the process of getting the permits taken care of for our station in Heber City. So we approached our architect after Thomas gave us some detail of this plat, and just kind of tried to see what would fit and do a little site fit of a station. This is just a small 2-bay fire station that would house at max 5 firefighters. Now, I don't think we would start with 5 firefighters there, but it would give us that opportunity to grow. So this number 1 option, there's actually 3 different options. 1 and 2 are actually a single story option, and 3 actually uses some of the contour of the actual property, that it becomes a 2-level station. So it actually shrinks the footprint a little bit on that 2-story station to give you more opportunity for other things on the site. So I don't know who has control, if you wanted to scroll down and look at the other. So that would be basically the station layout of the option number 1, which is basically a back-in station that we would actually have to back the apparatus in to the garage, and then it has a little day room, 5 quarters for overnight sleeping, as well as a small kitchenette and a workout room. Very down and dirty, very functional, but not very big.
Eric, do you know if your architect had an opportunity to look at some of maybe kind of mixed use options? Could there be something else on the site? Something on, if you did a 1-story, could there be a 2nd level that could be affordable housing, could be kind of that mixing of uses that I know that maybe you and Jan had briefly talked about, and you and I had generally discussed a little bit?
Yeah, other than just putting this footprint of the fire station on there, he just tried to leave room for whatever you felt you wanted to do with the rest of the site. So if this area was about 3 acres, he was trying to take less than 1 acre for this station. So one application I think is like 0.9 acre, and then obviously you would have the flexibility to do what else you need on there.
So we've only seen 1 option. I'm sure we'll see 2 and 3, but is there an opportunity to share the parking lot and the egress for the cars? Obviously not the fire trucks.
Whoever has control, if they can scroll down to option, say option. So on option 2 here, this is a, this has basically on the lower end or the south end, you would have where you have the parking lot, that would be a shared easement and shared drive to where people could use the parking lot. But on the north end, that would just be the fire access. That's how we'd exit the building. So we'd basically drive through the station, so we wouldn't have backing in there. So how large we make that parking lot and what to meet your needs as well as our needs, you know, I'm sure we can work that out. And again, this is just a single story pull through station, and total square footage with the apparatus bay is 8,000 square feet, give or take.
Is there a reason that the driveways are so long?
Part of it is the right of way from UDOT,
Oh, okay.
you know, because we're coming right off their highway.
Yeah.
We have to meet those setbacks. And that's where those two dotted lines around the triangle basically are those setbacks. So actually the option 3, the lowest option, actually shrinks it quite a bit, the fire station footprint, and provides quite a bit more parking. And obviously that gives us more space on that property for future development or whatever else the town would like to see on that property.
Do you anticipate that an ambulance will be based in one of these 3 potential plans?
But yeah, all of them. So what would it be? We would basically be cross-staffing. Ultimately, if we could get to the point where we have 5 personnel over there, that would include 3 people on a fire apparatus and 2 people on an ambulance. If we were just able to initially afford 2 or 3, they would cross-staff the ambulance or fire truck, depending on the type of call. So we would have an ambulance in town, and as well as fire suppression. So those bays will accommodate both those apparatus.
Does
And
the
you can
space?
cut-
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir.
I was just wondering, does the space, that is the physical space, the land area, does that allow room for expansion such that, you know, perhaps the sheriff may have a spot there, or perhaps the town might get some offices in there? Is the architect saying that there's enough room for what you need and some other things?
Yeah, it depending on how we would best utilize that property. If we want to continue to build in that triangle, we could add, as you can see there, you know, can you add on going towards the east, or, you know, part of a sheriff's substation on that upper level? Or is there another footprint for whether it's city offices or some sort of multi-use facility?
So is it your understanding that the topography, and I can't tell, I can't really see if there's any numbers, but is the topography, will it lend itself to something like that, or is it real steep right behind there?
It seems steep, and I couldn't remember if, and maybe Thomas knows what the spacing of the lines are. Are they 1 foot? Are they 5 feet?
I
You
think these are
recall?
5 or 10 foot. I think these are 5 intervals. It's pretty steep back there. So development in this particular image on the top right corner in the northeast would be pretty tough. It gets pretty steep up there. And certainly where you see in the southeast corner where the drainage gully comes through, that's certainly untouchable from an environmental standpoint. And certainly the steep slopes down there are untouchable. It's a pretty tight, pretty steeply sloped piece of property, which is why, you know, we're looking at it from all angles. Could there be a fire station on there? Could there be other neighborhood commercial? What is the right kind of mix of uses, or focus. I mean, we're very early stages right now, very conceptual. And so we're starting to try to figure out what can fit on there. So I think what Eric has done tonight is really helpful, is to kind of give you all a sense of, this might be the space for the fire station. And then what we would have to do if we were to go that way and dedicate land for a fire station, could we use other portions of that land for something else? And so we're starting to do our own internal designs and layouts to see what we could get on that property. It's not big, and we don't have much land, as you all know, to try to get commercial into the community and see if we can mix uses with something like public safety. So we're just beginning that look. So we'll continue to work with Eric and then bring you guys updates as we do so.
So one thing that we want to point out is if you click on the Hideout Station PDF, the reason why, basically we chose this piece of property, what we did is we worked with our GIS folks to, the goal that the standard is to have a fire station within 5 miles of most residents. So this purple outline or blue, however you look at it, basically where that fire station sits on that piece of property, it covers the entire town. One spot. It couldn't be in a better spot. Is it the most ideal piece of property to build on the side of a hill? Absolutely not. But as far as coverage, there is probably, you'd be hard pressed to find a better location to cover everything, not only in town, but also your neighbors in Tuahey and all that, to cover the east side of Jordanelle. It's about its best. It's better to be lucky than good, but we were pretty lucky on how this laid out. So that's why we focused probably a little too much on this little piece of triangle, because of how well it covers your town. This is the best bang for everybody's buck, I think. But anyway, Clint, do you have anything?
Yeah, just to kind of further talk about the 5 miles, the reason why we work with the 5 mile distances is lots of insurance companies use so every 5 to 10 years, we're audited by the insurance services offices that rates our dispatch center, our available fire flow, and us as a department for our response, our engines, and station placements. So they send out to not every insurance company, but quite a few, this rating. We were for the longest time a 6/X. As of last year, we were able to get it reduced to a 4/X. What that means is if you fall within 5 road miles of a station, you're classified as a 4, which our goal is to get to a 3. But the problem is if we don't place a home within 5 miles of a station, if you fall into the X, the insurance company could potentially just outright not provide service. So if you fall at 5.01 miles, there's a possibility that you might not get insurance, or the costs increase. So that's why we stress these 5 miles as much as we can, because we want to get the biggest bang for our buck, as Chief Hales said, with the placement of stations, as well as so that we can save the citizens money, and secondary, that's a secondary, but primary, we can have emergency responders as close as possible to get there in an emergency.
When you have a fire station, don't you need to also have lights to stop the traffic on 248?
There are occasions, you are correct. There are occasions that we do use some sort of signaling to get us onto the roadway, but that just depends on how busy that road is. We obviously have lights on our vehicles, and with such a long approach, we would be able to, I believe, navigate that. So I don't know if there would be a need to actually put those hawk type signals or emergency signals that we would control, leaving on an emergency call on there. If we had a shorter approach, I think you're absolutely correct that we might need to have that preemption for them. But with as long as that easement is, I think we would be able to notify and actually get out in a safe manner.
I think I like the location, like you said, of it. It's centralized. It isn't that big of a property to designate, another development or even commercial might be kind of tough there too. So I do like that location and that idea that you presented. But maybe try saving as much as we can of the land. And I liked what Jonathan Gunn had mentioned, that maybe we could do a town hall there. Would that be too small of a property to add?
We're looking at that, actually. This is the first time we've seen the final drawings from Eric's team. And so we're looking at how we can work different things around that. These are very conceptual ideas at this point. And so we just wanted to make sure that you guys saw them up front, and we'll continue to work together. And now we can start to kind of dimensionalize what else could fit onto that property. As Eric noted, it's a pretty steep property. It's not ideal to build on. It's not to say that it's not buildable. It certainly is. Technology and engineering allow anything today, but it is not ideal. And so now we have to start looking at what can be on there, and what the town wants in that particular location.
I take it that if they're going to expand the footprint, the best way to go is up rather than out.
Certainly easier.
And from the right side of that parking lot to the drainage dotted line easement there, about how, give me an idea about how many feet that is. Does anybody know? On this picture.
It's probably about, let me just zoom in here. It's probably about 75 feet or so.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, it's not a terribly big piece of property, and as Eric and Clint noted, you're kind of set back pretty far off of 248 because of the width of the right of way for SR 248, and so longer driveways. But then again, that does push anybody up into that slope if you're going to do any kind of development.
Right. Well, could you build, to the, that would be the south entrance closer to the road? No, I mean, just
can't build closer to the road because that's considered UDOT right of way. And so it's
not just for I thought it was just for the fire station. Okay.
No, that's UDOT right of way. They preserve that land for potential expansion of UDOT right of way down the road, for potential bike and ped trails, things like that could exist there. That's generally reserved for right of way activity and infrastructure.
Thomas, is it unreasonable to think that since this is a public safety effort, that UDOT might give a little bit?
There's always a hope and a fingers crossed opportunity. So the answer is yes. Let's leave it there. Yes.
Okay. I didn't hear a lot of optimism there. So that's what my takeaway is.
UDOT and anybody, in fairness to counties and cities and towns around the state, once they have right of way, they technically like to hold it for utility easements, bikeway, infrastructure, future lane expansion, etc. So it can be hard to encroach in on that.
Okay, thank you.
And speaking about UDOT access, so on this triangle piece, they have one designated 16-foot access. So having another access, UDOT's very protective of their right-of-way accesses. So having another, going from 1 to 2 for a fire station and for fire and life safety, we can kind of put an arm into them and work with UDOT to have that secondary access. But to get another access to go from 1 to 3 it's kind of a tall tale. Like Thomas was saying, it's always a no unless you ask, but some no's are a little bit quicker than others. So the site is a little not only restricted because it's topography, but just the one single access point.
Will they require you to have the the speed up lane coming out and or a lane coming in?
I think we're a little early to know. I mean, that's
Yeah,
always a
know that.
possibility, but
Yeah.
for fire and life safety, we work real well with UDOT in working with developments to gain access to that. They're really protective of it, but at this point, it's hard to say, yes, they would require an XL, decel lane or what their requirements for a station. If you do something else that's more of a commercial, a higher occupancy, that becomes a lot more likely that if it's a town hall or an amphitheater or anything like that, it becomes a lot more likely with more traffic.
Yeah,
And again, we don't want to take a lot of your time. We just wanted to just show you that this is on our radar, and having had an opportunity to drive the town with the mayor and look at potential sites, this is ultimately what we feel is the best as far as geographically located. But again, this is just very preliminary, and we wanted to kind of get it on your radar to even help us out on what you guys think would be best.
Eric, is it something you could send over to us so that we can start to we've got some conceptual designs for this particular property. We could start to overlay and figure out what the opportunities might be for
These documents, yes, I did forward those, but I will be more than happy to send those to you, Thomas.
Oh, great. Okay. And then we can certainly work with the planning commissioners. If you guys have any input, certainly don't hesitate to send it my way, and we can start to create potentially more mixed use opportunities on the site, and then bring it back to you and see if it's viable. It has to work also with, a fire station. We can't have competing uses.
I, for one, think that of all the things the town can provide, excuse me, public safety is way up on the list. So, I'm looking at this with a very favorable idea.
All right, if there's no other questions, again, please, Thomas and whoever, and they can reach out to us. But again, we appreciate your time and hopefully your consideration as we work towards getting a fire station in Hideout.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Clint. This is great. This is very helpful.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, bye now.
We appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Holly, I have a question for you. Should we just put this over for a date uncertain?
Yes, we're
Yeah,
just
okay.
waiting we need to get an application in so we can discuss it.
No problem. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so then are there any more questions from any of the other commissioners in regard to this matter? There being none, we'll put this over for a date uncertain. Once we get the application is made and we've received more documentation in regards to it. Okay, item number 3, preliminary discussion of a potential development bloom at Hideout. I'm sorry, we are that one is put over for a date uncertain until the requisite applications are made by the parties. Okay, next on the agenda. Well, first, let me ask, does any of the commissioners have any questions in regard to Thomas or Polly or anybody else in regard to the documents that were sent to us in regard to the Benlock and the annexation question?
Maybe you could help me understand the letter from JSSD. It sounds like I don't understand if the area in yellow, which is the Benlock property, is in their jurisdiction. Don't they already know what the proposed density is?
I asked the same questions, Glynis.
So this is a good question. We after we received the letter, we reached out to JSSD, and we have not yet been able to get in contact with them. We've traded messages, and so we've left messages, and so we haven't yet been in contact with them. But our understanding is that yes, to your question, the area in yellow is their area C, which is under JSSD's jurisdiction. Within that area C on that map, Benlock exists, and Benlock has already received density and approval by way of Wasatch County. And so our understanding is that, yes, that density, if Benlock were to petition to annex, if the town were to accept that petition and negotiate an annexation agreement, a master development agreement, et cetera, that density would likely be very similar to what Wasatch County is, has already awarded. So it's our understanding that the town of Hideout would respect that density allocation, and it wouldn't be significantly different. And so it shouldn't change things. I think that the JSSD letter just outlined a concern that they wanted that to be understood, that the density that's been allocated by way of Wasatch County, would that be significantly changed? I think the answer is no. I don't think that Hideout would have the intention to. I think it would be relatively the same as what is. We don't exactly know what those numbers are. We have a rough understanding. We were able to connect with Benlock a little bit this week to get an understanding of those numbers, but we don't have an exact exact number for that density. So that's something that we would want to work through. But our recommendation would be that as you think about this, that density that's already been allocated would roughly remain the same. Out of respect for JSSD 1 and 2, just to ensure that those who, the surrounding properties around Benlock, they have an understanding of what could be built there, that we would respect that and probably keep that roughly the same.
Are they concerned we would allow them to increase the density? Is that?
I suspect that's the concern based on the JSSD letter. I don't know that to be true, but if I'm reading the letter and reading between the lines, I suspect the concern might be that the town might allow for more density.
Yeah,
Okay.
like you, I didn't really understand the much of the letter either. My key takeaways were, and I hope that they will participate. But my key takeaways were, one, were the density that you've already discussed, and two, that there might be some overlapping issues. And I really would like to hear from them about their concerns. And then the third one, my takeaway was they were looking to ensure cooperation, which I don't think is going to be much of a problem. But those were my three takeaways, but I could be way off base.
No, I think you're right, Jonathan. I think those were roughly our takeaways as well. And I think that Tim Dixon on? Yeah, he is. Tim could speak to this a little bit, but he and I had a discussion the other day with regard to our relationship with JSSD, which is very, very good. They are the utility provider. We have an agreement with them. Certainly, it is our understanding that we would not change anything with regard to that agreement. So they would still be the provider. They would still, water shares would transfer to them from Benlock, et cetera. But Tim, if you're on, you could probably speak to that far better than I can.
Well, I don't know if I would add any other value than what you said. I mean, everything you just said was correct. So JSSD, I think, is, just submitted that letter as a concern, and I think we'll just hold them to, like Thomas said, everything that he just mentioned, I think is perfect. And I'm really not going to be able to add anything to it. So good job, Thomas. You did great.
Right. So yeah, our understanding is that relationship and the agreements that we have with them would remain the same.
Can we invite them to come and perhaps elaborate on the issues of their concern, such that they get a chance to fully express them, and we get a chance to fully understand them?
We can certainly do that. Let me just see. I don't know if anybody from Benlock is on the phone or is on this Zoom call. Jason or Patrick or Jamie, anybody or any of you on here that could speak a little bit more to the density issue, maybe? Let's see. Okay, maybe not. And if that's the case, to answer your question, we can certainly invite JSSD to provide more information. As I said, we reached out to them. Unfortunately, we weren't able to actually engage in a dialogue. We traded messages, and so we don't yet know the details with regard to their concerns. But again, I do think it is concerned about increase in density. But I also, as I outlined earlier, I don't think that that would be the town's intent. The town's intent would be basically to take the density that's already been allocated by way of Wasatch County and the MDA that they have with them, and basically transfer it over, roughly.
I think we already have enough sewer and water issues. We wouldn't want to make them worse.
Right, right.
Can
Are
we
there any other
see,
questions? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, can we see the map? Now that I have my big screen.
So yeah, this map kind of gives you more of a regional context. And just for clarification, the area in the red circle at last month's meeting, that area was not noted as being included in the expansion area. We had some further discussion with the Benlock representatives and others. We did some additional research on the county parcel map. That area in the circle, it's roughly 4 or 5 larger parcels in that area, would be included in the expansion area. So that would be part of the recommendation, that that is in the expansion area. That particular area is not part of the Benlock Ranch's 2,300 acres, but it would be included in the expansion area. Keep in mind, these are 2 independent issues, right? One is, what we're asking you all tonight is, are you open to expanding the annexation area, which would be that area in the horizontal lines? And keep in mind, the north section of that area that you see outlined in magenta is your current annexation declaration area. This would expand that purple line, that magenta line. That does not expand the town's boundary. It does not include areas within the town boundary. That area, as you can see, is in the red boundary over where it says Hideout Town Boundary, right? That's a smaller area. The ADA boundary annexation declaration area is much, much larger. It offers opportunity for annexation, but it's not land that would be part of the town unless it were petitioned for annexation and you accepted it and the town council accepted it. So those are 2 independent issues. The Benlock Ranch is located within those horizontal lines. It's a portion of that area. And so that petition would come in at a later date.
So, another
This area
question.
right here is the Benlock Ranch area that I've kind of highlighted in red.
If we go ahead and do this annexation, and down the road, somebody wants to be annexed, say this little square over by the arrow, just as an example. It's
Yep.
not contiguous with our current Hideout town boundary. Are we allowed to do that?
It would have to be contiguous with the town boundary. So for us to be able to do something like that, so roughly this is the Benlock Ranch area that I highlighted in blue. If this were to, if they petition for annexation, there would have to be additional properties here that would be a part of that petition for annexation. And so it would have to be contiguous to the town boundary that is right here. So
Or
if somebody
or-
here wanted to petition for annexation, they couldn't do so independently. There would have to be some connection. In this case, it would be state lands. They would have to include those lands in that annexation. We can't create islands that are independent of the town's boundaries.
Okay, and that wasn't that one of JSSD's concerns?
They had a concern that would this be independent? Would it not be contiguous to the town boundary? The proposal, as we understand it from the Benlock representatives, is that it would include the area that I've outlined roughly in blue. That's a very generic drawing. Keep that in mind, but it would be contiguous to the town boundary.
Is there a reason why you wouldn't go to the, what direction is that? east.
Oh, north is up, yeah.
I know Tuhey does not want to become part of us, but what about the other stuff that's in the magenta area?
In this area right here.
Yeah, all the way up.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to, we would have to understand if those property owners would, though they actually could petition to be annexed right now. They haven't petitioned to be annexed. For somebody in the blue area to be annexed, they would have to coordinate with the state park land to be able to annex in some configuration like I've roughly drawn here. They haven't yet petitioned, not unlike, you know, some of the folks over here, et cetera, have not yet petitioned to be annexed, nor has there been any discussion. And so it would have to be contiguous.
Also,
So-
Glennis, just so you know, some of the property that's within that magenta, that's basically east of Tuhey, that's currently for sale. So we have to see what happens with that too.
Yeah, so do the property owners have to petition us, or can we ask them if they're interested?
I mean, certainly the town has the opportunity to reach out and, you know, in the form of a partnership and ask people if they would like to be annexed, but ultimately the petition comes from the property owner.
Okay.
Well, do you think JSSD's concern, one of their concerns, is increasing density? That they made that very clear. But I know we had also talked about hopefully to put in commercial in there. So maybe that's what, do you think that's what they're talking about? That they, besides Benlock, they wouldn't want us to do any commercial, a school, anything like that? I mean,
That's a good question. The Benlock, the conceptual plan that Benlock presented back in December to you all did include some recreational amenities, a community center, 35,000 square feet of commercial. And so as we dig in more with the Benlock group, we'll understand exactly what their density allocations have been from Wasatch County, but it's our understanding that that commercial allocation has already been awarded by Wasatch County. So it shouldn't really be any different. Could there be minor tweaks, less residential, slightly more residential, less commercial, slightly more commercial, as you all entertain a petition from them, which is subsequent to this application? Yeah, I mean, there could be, I guess, potentially minor tweaks, but I don't think that it would be anything significant. So I don't think that the actual density would be significantly different than what they've already been awarded within JSSD's current Area C jurisdiction.
Do any of the other commissioners have any other questions before we open this up for a public hearing?
I guess I would just make one statement if I could, Tony, before you
Sure.
open it. And that is, again, we're really looking at the opportunity to expand the ADA. There was no obligation for future annexations, whether that's Benlock and or other petitions. This is simply expanding the area under which you can consider annexations. That is really what this is about tonight. But with all of that being said, make no mistake, it's somewhat Benlock driven, right? We've dealt with them. They've reached out to you, the Planning Commission. They've reached out to the town. We've had discussions with them. So they are certainly the driver behind this, but there are no obligations. This is really just looking at expanding the boundary. Subsequent, if this were to get a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission, it would go to the town council. And if they were to accept this and approve it down the road, then we could potentially entertain an annexation petition from Benlock and or others that are within that district. I just want to make sure that we understand these are two independent issues.
Just so everybody knows, and correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas. So basically, even if we give it a positive recommendation to expand the annexation boundary, we're under no obligation to Benlock for anything down the road.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that applies the same as the magenta line you see on this current map here. You're under no obligation for those properties that are in there unless, there were a petition and there were an agreement.
Okay.
Polly, did I say that correctly?
Yes, sorry, I thought I was muted. Yeah, that is correct. We're under, this is the first step, but there's no obligation either way. We'll, if this does go forward, then we will review the Benlock on its own merits. And I just noticed that the letter wasn't included in the packet. We will update the packet so that the letter is in there if the public wants to see it. I think that all the planning commissioners have already received it.
Hi, just as a reminder, I included it in last month's packet that we updated after the last meeting, but I will add it to this meeting as well.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Actually, it was in my packet letter. Okay.
All right. Are there any more questions from any of the commissioners? Okay, there being none, then we will open this up for a public discussion. Okay, Damian Tatiano, excuse me if I said your name wrong.
That's all right. Many people do. That's Titano, no problem. My question is, what is the purpose of the ADA, and why wouldn't you just make it as big as possible? What is the reason for limitation?
So the ADA is really an area that is defined as potential expansion area for a community to grow into. And so, as we look at our general plan, as we look at options down the road and where we want to grow, the ADA, the annexation declaration area, helps us define that. In terms of making it bigger, we're really limited by the Summit County line. We're limited by the jurisdiction around Heber. I mean, this particular annexation declaration area expansion butts right up against the Heber city boundary. And so it actually, in fact, some of this area in the horizontal black lines, some of that area is also in the Heber City annexation declaration area. And so there's some that's acceptable. But really we're limited as we run into other jurisdictions, frankly. To the east and to the east, we run into the Summit County line. To the south, we run into Heber City. As we move to the north and to the east, we run into the annexation declaration area boundary for Park City, and then certainly Park City jurisdiction a little bit further to the west. So it's really an allocation based on other communities' boundaries.
That's what I mean. So why wouldn't we just make the line to everyone's border that we can right now, and just not worry about it? Like, why limit it?
I think we're pretty close to getting to some of those boundaries and borders right now. And I think if your question is relative to this one, I think that no, it does make sense, and I think that's why we're looking into it. But we are going as far south as we actually can.
Okay, and then the last question is this a legal step that has to be done? So you have to expand the ADA, then you have to be a part of the ADA, and then you have to do a petition. So is it just this is just a legal hurdle that you have to be included before you can petition?
Yep, well, you have to be within an ADA boundary before you can petition a community for annexation.
Okay, I would recommend making the boundary as big as possible to every jurisdiction that we can.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. Greg M.
Hi there, good evening. So my name is Greg McIntyre, by the way. I'm one of the Golden Eagle lot owners, and I promise I'm not going to talk about permitting. So, that one's going to get resolved. Yeah, wait for it, Thomas. My question's mostly for you, but it's really kind of a request. And it's just, I think this may be an optics thing. We're going to meet with Ryan Sapper on the Salzman property. He's agreed to talk to several dozen of the Golden Eagle landowners this Sunday, and we're all looking forward to the conversation. But I'm going to be honest with you, most of the people want to, at that conversation, don't want to talk about what Ryan wants to talk about. It's a ton of anxiety around this term of an amphitheater. And I've heard it
Greg,
come up.
Greg, excuse me, Greg, do you have any questions in regard to this right now?
I don't have a question for the stuff that's there. And I promise you, I don't want to argue a point one way or the other.
No, because right now, all we are doing, we all are only entertaining questions in regard to the annexation proposal.
Okay, my apologies. And I
No
can
problem.
wait because I thought the public hearing was about anything on.
No, this is public hearing in regard to the annexation.
Okay, then I can wait, or maybe Thomas, I'll reach out to you independently.
Certainly.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Sorry about that. Is there anybody else online or on the phone that has a question or would like to have anything to discuss in regard to the annexation proposal?
If I may, just remind the folks that are on the phone, if you would like to speak, *9 will raise your hand. And then when you're called on, then we can, you would do *6 to unmute yourself.
Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see anybody on my screen.
I don't see any hands raised either.
Okay. I'll give it another 30 seconds or so, and then we can close the public discussion.
Could we perhaps repeat the instructions on how to raise a hand and be heard?
Excuse me, Jonathan?
Yeah, I was just wondering if perhaps we could repeat the instructions on how members of the public might raise their hand, just in case somebody missed it the first time.
Sure.
Alicia, it's *9 to raise
If you're
your
on the phone.
*6 to unmute, I think, or is it vice versa?
Oh, you had it right. Yep. *9 to raise your hand if you're on the phone. And then for those that are on Zoom, if you don't know, there's a more button and you can under the 3 dots, and then you just raise your hand there.
Okay, there being no further questions, we will close the public hearing part of this discussion. That being said, is there any members of the commission that would like to make a proposal?
I'll propose that we give a positive recommendation to the town council on the proposed hideout annexation declaration area, expansion area, with the caveat that how we've interpreted the JSSD letter is accurate. Is that acceptable?
And I think that's fair. And also, yeah, I think that us meeting with JSSD and either getting them at a meeting or getting a more clear understanding of their concerns is a good idea, and certainly understanding exact density allocations. But I think that actually makes sense. Thanks, Glenn.
I have a quick question for Polly. Are we confident we've dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's with respect to, notices and things like that, such that we're in a good posture to go forward if it's voted that way?
Yes, I think we are.
Okay. Thank you.
Would anybody like to second Glynis's motion?
I will.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, then we'll take a vote to give a positive recommendation to the town council to expand the town's annexation plan to encompass the outlined areas. Okay, well, we'll take a vote. Glynis,
Yes,
Jonathan,
Yes,
Donna,
Yes,
Rachel,
Yes,
and Tony's a yes. Okay, that being said, the positive recommendation will be forwarded to the town council for their consideration. One other thing before we adjourn the meeting. Glynis, the next meeting is April 20th. I'm leaving the country on the 18th. Would you mind running the meeting?
sure.
Thank you. So this way, Alicia, if you would just have everything forwarded to her for it that needs to be done.
Did you just say April? Isn't it March? Don't we have a March
Oh, I'm
meeting?
sorry. Yes. I'm looking too far ahead for my vacation. I will be here
You
for the
can't
March
wait.
one. Well, this way I'm giving you a heads up to come up with a good excuse, Glynis, in April. Sorry about that.
No,
All
no
right.
problem.
That being said, would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Jonathan. Second,
I'll second it.
thank you, Donna. They'll take a vote. Glynis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Rachel,
yes.
and Tony's a yes. Thank you all. And thank you, Thomas and Alicia, for everything. And we'll see you all on March 16th. Yep. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.